Okay, let's open this up. Welcome to the remedial lesson covering our lesson on maps. Moving to the first slide, we're going to talk about what exactly is a map. A map is a symbolic representation of a specific location. You can have maps for all kinds of different kind of things. Even the hand-drawn maps you would give to your friends as a little kid to find their way to your house counts as a map. There are two main types of maps, which are the reference maps and thematic maps. Reference maps show geographical data such as borders, landforms, waterways, and roads. These typically are the maps that you use to get directions or see geographical characteristics of a certain location. Your GPS is also an example of a reference map. And then we have thematic maps, which are very different because they depict a subject over a certain geographical area. You see these most often depict polls, large-scale experiments, and most commonly seen during U.S. president elections. The example we have here is a thematic map covering what states drive the most in the United States. As we can see here, Wyoming and Mississippi are clearly the two that have been driving the most. It's just using thematic maps is an easy way to depict these sorts of data. And then we move on to map projections. Map projections are the various ways we present the Earth on a flat, plane surface. A few common map projections are the Mercator map projection, which is the most common one we use to this day. And then we have the Robinson map projection, which is also very common. We see this a lot. And the Gall-Peters map projection, which is kind of squashed at the top and elongated towards the bottom. All right, and now there are two kinds of locations. Absolute location and relative location. Absolute location is the exact location of something on Earth, often given in terms of latitude and longitude. These are usually given in coordinates forms, which we will talk about on a later slide. And then we have relative locations. Relative location is a place or object relative to something else. So, for example, when someone asks the location of a store, like maybe Joann's little fabric store, you would say, oh, it's right next to Petco on your drive. Or when you're describing where you live to a friend, you might say, oh, I live next to the house with the big old oak tree with the tire swing in it. Those are just a few ways you can use relative location. It's the most common way we use it in everyday life is relative location. So in order to find coordinates, which we'll talk about in a second, we use the lines of latitude and longitude. So lines of latitude are the ones to divide Earth by north and south, which are the horizontal lines. Think of them like rungs on a ladder. And then the one that divides us in half is the equator, which I think everybody knows by now. And then we have the lines of longitude, which divide the Earth by east and west, which are the vertical lines. And the one that divides us in half at 0 degrees is the prime meridian. And then we have coordinates, which are primarily made up of latitude and longitude, and they're used to measure describe positions of Earth using degrees of latitude and longitude. Coordinates are traditionally written as X amount of degrees north and south and X amount of degrees east and west. And when you're writing coordinates, or when you're reading them off, it's done as certain of like a number of degrees, minutes, and then seconds. There usually will be extra numbers. This is the second, this is the minute, and then there'll usually be another one here, which would be the seconds. Okay, so when you think of coordinates, you can think of them like you're looking at a graph in your map class. You'd have to move a certain amount of points from the x-axis up or down, or from the y-axis left or right to get to a new point. That's the same way you can find your ways to different locations using coordinates on a map. So we're going to do a few examples here, as soon as I can find a way out of here, on Google Earth. So we're going to start by finding 55 degrees in 10 minutes north. Oh wait, I don't know this on here. So let's find our way to the equator and the prime meridian, where those two intersect. It's the easiest way to move around. Gotta find England, because the prime meridian runs through Greenwich, England. Here we are. So we're going to start here, and then we're going to move 50 degrees in 10 minutes north. Going up, and up, and up. We go up for a second. Went a little too far. There it is. So around here is 55, right here. And then we're going to move 118 degrees west. So we're going to go this way. 118 degrees and 48 minutes west. Here we are, right up here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So we're going 118, so we're going to be in between here. I'm going to come up here, 155. I already have it written out on here prior to this, just to move it go smoother. So we're at 118, which is right here, and 118.48. And then, oh, I think I might have placed that wrong. Oops. And then we're going 55, so it'd be more here. So let's move my face and put that to the right one. Oopsies. So it'd be around here-ish. Somewhere around there. Yeah, go away. All right, and then we're going to do our second one, which will be 9 degrees north, 9 degrees, 58 minutes north, and, backing up, oh, wrong one. Yeah, and 76 degrees and 17 minutes. And 17 minutes east. So we're going to start here, then we're going to go up 9 degrees, which is just right here. It should be right here. Yeah, scoot in a little bit, let it load. There we go. And then we're going to move 76 degrees east. Going this way. God, this takes way too long. Gotta cross the ocean. And there we are. 76 degrees east. And now we have arrived at Kochi, India. And that's how you use coordinates to find your way around on a map. I will add the links to the sites that I used in the description and a link to this slideshow so you can do more examples on your own. So here's the links right here, and there will also be in the description of the video. So now we're going to do a few closing thoughts, go over a few other points. So going back to the coordinates, when I mentioned that it's like looking at a graph, one thing you need to know is do not use negatives in your coordinates. You cannot go in a negative direction. If you do that, it'll just be wrong. Just not correct. Stay away from that. That is like a main thing I wanted to mention about that. And I think that's the only other points I wanted to do. And then, so let's close this up with maps are symbolic representations of location, as I had stated before, and are a necessary part of life. We use them every single day of our life, even mental maps inside of our head to move around grocery stores or go when you're going to school or going to work. Use a mental map in your mind of the roads, of aisles in a store. Just maps are used for everything, even if it's not physical. Even if you're inside a grocery store. You may think reading maps is irrelevant thanks to the modern GPS, but there is always a times when you won't have data or internet or even any sort of connection where you won't be able to get around if you can't read or use an actual map. So it's really better if you learn how to use it now rather than later. I know I used to not want to rely on maps either, but there is always a chance you will need it. Like when you go camping or when you're on a road trip and your phone dies. Whatever the chances are, you will need it. It is a very essential survival skill, and it just helps a lot of things. So thank you all for coming and listening to this remedial lesson, and I hope it might have helped you learn something, a little more about maps and how to read them and the different kinds of locations that we use. Hope you all have a good day. Thank you.